And I have seen that. And when there was a lot of focus on deaf and dying counseling, and it seemed like people said, like, no, you can't get depressed yet. You haven't been angry. So in either case, and I think when people have actually tried to look at the grief process, I think it's even less clear than the preparation for your own death kind of process. And the most useful thing you can do is listen and let people be wherever they are and do whatever they're doing. And sometimes you have to help people if they have issues about the way that the deceased died. Sometimes talking about that a lot can be really useful. So we go into, there's a whole lecture on this. I don't want to keep advertising 520. We do a whole session on grief. In the knowledge and health, psych, and aging, there's a lot of focus on the psychophysiology of stress. So more than, for the most part, more than neuroscience. Although there's getting to be some interesting kind of neuroscience science as well. People are really kind of focused in on the whole pituitary adrenal system kind of stress response idea is one of the underlying notions here. And psychophys reactions involving the cardiac system, so heart rate, blood pressure. Increasingly cortisol is becoming a big deal here. You see reactive protein as a marker of infection and stress-related stuff. People get into immune system kind of responses and so forth. Like all the other health psych doesn't necessarily ignore the nervous system, but you tend to get much more of a focus on other physical systems that are involved in the stress response, and then the other physical systems that might mediate the connection between psychological variables, including stress, and the disease outcome of interest. So whatever you think the physiology might be of the connection between stress and risk for or eventual development of the disease process over years and decades would be part of what you'd be looking at as at least intervening variables. And kind of a research question and kind of bridging to the more professional side of health psych as well as question, you've heard me on soapboxes about various points over the semester of, why don't people do what they know to do to have good health? It's kind of like we were talking before the break about therapy, psychological outcomes and people being resistant to that. Most of what we know about good health, both at a personal level and at a public health level, we've known for a long, long time. There's very little that's new about health and any of the chronic illnesses of life. And we don't do it. And I mean we, I'm not figures. Even when I get around to doing stuff, it takes years, and I don't know. And when there's things that I've done in the last several years, and I still couldn't tell you why at the particular time that I did it. I took off about 30 pounds 3 years ago, and I've kept it off so far. And I've been
That's impressive.
And I've been, I knew I needed to do it for a couple of decades. I've been actively thinking about it for several years. I have a few ideas about, like what prompted me, but really, my experience in the decisions, I was just sitting at breakfast, one morning, having the same discussion that I've had with myself a billion times before, that had always ended in no particular action before. For some reason, this morning I said, you know what, I'm going to go to Weight Watchers on Friday. And kind of kept on going. And one of the things that one of the techniques that people look at in this whole process is motivational interviewing, which again, started actually in substance abuse kind of decisions. Most addicts most addicts know for years before they do anything about it, if they ever do anything about it, that they're an addict. And then it takes them quite a while to decide that maybe they ought to do something about it, and then it takes longer yet to actually decide to do something about it, but it takes longer to do it. And then you have to keep deciding and so forth. That whole process is actually one of the things that people look at it. Why don't we do what we know is good for us? How do we eventually get around to doing it? What makes those differences for people? How do you keep people on the wagon or keep people doing good health behaviors once they are doing it? You know, one of the big things now in substance abuse treatment is inoculating people against relapse, because almost everybody relapses. And if your response to relapse is, okay, hell, that didn't work, so you might as well get high again. And so you can kind of like think through that whole process of why isn't this going to work, and what's going to go wrong, how are people going to resist this, and kind of take that seriously and go on from there is a big part of what works into what kind of research and interventions in health psych. A lot of it is about making health care decisions and also even treatment adherence kind of issues, because nobody takes their medicines the way they're supposed to. Well, not nobody, almost nobody.
Dr. Knight?
Yeah.
To me, like all the stuff that you're describing, it seems kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy, like seeing what's the underlying causes.
Almost all of the interventions in health psych are CBT applied to health situations. It's a lot of the same kind of thinking, and a lot of the same interventions, but just bringing them into the general medical environment and blending it with what's known about the disorders in the environment. Exactly right. So kind of a typical general model is you have stressors, probably actually somewhere around this area, you have that appraisal point where you say to yourself, you're got an exam and this is a terrible stressful experience, and it's going to start falling apart, and you say, I've got an exam coming, and what a wonderful opportunity to show how bright I am, and have a really refreshing, everybody always laughs when I say, you really could do this. What you're experiencing right now is part of the resistance that people are going through. You can say, this is a real intellectual challenge, a real growth experience. You could. You really could. And it's like the difference between people, I think we talked about this before, some people you'll look at thrill rides and amusement parks and think, oh my God, no way I'm doing that, and other people, whee! Some people jumping out of airplanes. And you actually can change that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you're going to change it because I'm saying you change it. But that's part of what you do in cognitive therapy is you get people to reprogram their own thoughts and change their own thoughts. Then that appraisal leads to the emotional distress. In various ways, most of the things that we would characterize as negatively valenced emotional experiences, depression, anxiety, hostility, etc., if experienced for long periods of time, also have physiological responses that go with them. And those physiological responses, which might themselves be symptoms, can either be experienced as symptoms and or can produce physical symptoms of various sorts. And then, again, over usually fairly long periods of time, that wear and tear, that increased wear and tear on the body, or that decreased repair response to the wear and tear on the body, is thought, at least in some cases, to be able to produce disease. For example, I think almost everybody is sort of bought into the argument that through a process like this, over longer periods of time, you can produce cardiac disease and cardiovascular system diseases of various sorts. Some cancer risk can probably be increased by certain kinds of stress reaction, and probably mediated in part by decreased immune system.